Hey everybody, welcome to the Daily Dose. This week we are wondering about difference makers. And I'm not talking about the LeBron Jameses of the world who've taken their millions of dollars and revitalized schools or neighborhoods, or the George Clooneys who've used their influence to make a global impact. Those people in some cases have done some really great things. But this week we want you to think about the people who've made a difference to you. In particular, the people who've made a difference in your life of faith. Now, my faith story is pretty uneventful, if I'm honest. We were a go to church every week kind of family. I went to Sunday school, I went to vacation Bible school, and my parents' friends were church people. When I was in middle school and high school, I went on some youth trips with our church. Our church choir director was also my high school choir director, so he invited me to learn how to sing the liturgy at our traditional worship service. He taught me how to do that, and church was just a part of my life. I really enjoyed it for the most part. It was something I was used to, and in a lot of ways, it was really predictable. It was very safe, so I felt comfortable. And I have my parents to thank for a lot of their faithfulness to a commitment to raise their kids in the church. That played a huge role in my life. And one of the things that my parents encouraged me to do was go to Bible camp. So when I was in middle school, I went to camp a couple of different times in Iowa, where we lived. And then by the time I got to high school, I went to camps in Colorado and Wyoming, and it was something I loved. And even though I had been a church kid, there was something different about camp. It really lit a fire of curiosity in me. So fast forward to college, and one of the things I knew I wanted to do was work at a Bible camp someday. So after my first year, I had thought maybe this was the time that I could do that. But my parents lovingly convinced me to come home for that summer. So I think I did maybe the most opposite thing of working at a Bible camp. I got a job at the Mall of America and worked at Abercrombie & Fitch. I love to use this in sometimes when we do the activities of two truths and a lie, because I tell you, nobody ever guesses that I worked at Abercrombie & Fitch. It's a clothing store with different types of clothing than I would wear now, let's just say. But it was the thing that my friend and I were committed to doing. We worked for a summer at that big mall. So the next summer, I thought, okay, maybe this is the time where I can work at a camp. And I remember at Concordia College having an interview with a camp director named Marsh Draghi. And he interviewed me, and he worked at this camp. He was the director of a camp called Camp Metigoshe in, of all places, Bottineau, North Dakota. It's a very small town in the middle of North Dakota. And I remember him asking me, so you're going to work at a Bible camp after working at Abercrombie & Fitch last summer? He thought this was very strange. But eventually, he offered me a job, and it's a place where I spent the next 5 summers working. Now, why do I tell this story? Marsh Draghi is, for me, a person who greatly influenced my faith life. And here's the thing about Marsh. He and his wife, Anne, didn't have any kids, but they had this way of really embracing the camp staff that they hired. They welcomed people like me, who was brand new to this camp, even though they had history there for a long time. They welcomed me, they welcomed people who were nothing like me to this place. He was a pastor who really knew how to talk to kids and young adults about faith. He was musical, and he used his music to really inspire faith. And he helped me to see leadership potential that I didn't know I had. But I think the thing that influenced me the most was Marsh's leadership about the fact that church doesn't have to look like you expect it to look. People who work for a camp or a church don't have to look like you might expect them to. Marsh hired staff people from all walks of life, sometimes people who had been burned by the church when they were younger, or who didn't have any experience in faith lives when they were kids. He helped create a staff that was maybe rough around the edges in some ways, in a traditional sense. But they were passionate. He was passionate about them, about building up leaders for the faith of the next generation. And then helping some kids who were maybe rough around the edges to teach them about Jesus. And Marsh helped to show me that God shows up not just in pews on a Sunday morning, sometimes in the middle of the night around a campfire. That the message of grace isn't just for people who are all put together in their church clothes like I thought I needed to be when I was a kid, but for people who come from families that are hurt and broken, to realize that all of us have hurt and brokenness. And that my role as someone who wanted to work in the church later on, that wanted to pass on faith to the next generation, wasn't just to make people act or look like me, but instead to help learn from and walk with and be with other people as well. It reminds me of a verse from Hebrews chapter 13. Don't forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. Who's that one person that you could show that hospitality to, that radical hospitality to welcome them in? Maybe they don't look like you, maybe they don't act like you, they don't come from the same upbringing that you do, but maybe you could be that one for that person. You can be a difference maker. Thank you so much for joining us on the Daily Dose. We'd love to have you subscribe on our YouTube channel. If you're watching on cable access, be sure to invite someone to join you. You can catch up on our entire week of Daily Doses on YouTube or Facebook at any time. Thanks so much.